You, full of cinnamon, delicious cream cheese, gourmet cinnamon roll. You know what you're... Anyway, this is my you review, guys. I actually didn't record it, and I was just babbling for like 20 minutes, and I hadn't even hit record. So that's a special choice that I just made in life. So anyway, thank you for your time, gorgeous gourmet cinnamon roll. So this is a you review, guys. Not a review of you, but the show You on Netflix. Season 4, which was split up into 2 parts for reasons, which is fine. And sometimes they do that. Stranger Things did that, last year too. So anyway, now I'll actually talk about all the stuff I was talking about. There will be spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it and you're a fan of You, go ahead and click off and come back once you've watched it. So, for those of you who have watched You, this is the 4th season. And at the end of season 3, he ends up having to kill Love Quinn and then basically kills himself off. And he was obsessed with this other girl named Marianne, who, finds out kind of what he is and, runs as far away as she can. As you do. Yeah. And so we find him in London, and he's changed his name, obviously, to Jonathan something. Don't remember the name. I'm not going to worry about looking it up. And he's working as a professor at this university. So he's very studious. And then he ends up interacting with a big rich crowd. He ends up befriending this guy who's just one of those pretentious rich people who just likes to go out and do drugs and act like a fool. And guy you really can't stand. I don't know if it's his roommate or it's just a friend of his. He just for some reason gravitates to him. I think it was he's a professor. That's right. They were both teaching, I think. That's how it was. And it's been a while. I watched the first part in February, so I'm trying to remember some of the first part a little bit. I just watched the second part last weekend. So anyway, back to me. So anyway, we find out that he did find Marianne, and he chases her and tries to get her attention, and he ends up letting her go, and she ends up going back on the train and all this other stuff. That was the plan, and then we'll find out more later. So anyway, he's kind of engrossed in this kind of London's upper crust, rich people getting drunk and just being pretentious. Pretty much. Influencers and princesses and all this other stuff. And he's kind of, he's annoyed because it's what the fuck, these people are awful. And so after getting too much drinking and drugs and interacting with all these people, he wakes up and the guy who was professor is dead in his fucking apartment, stabbed and all that. So he's like, oh fuck, I don't remember. He doesn't remember anything. So he's like, I blacked out from this. And all, so of course he disposes of the body as you do, as Joe Goldberg does. Must I say, Ben Badgley looks good with the beard. I like the beard. It's a good look for him. Much like me, with my beard. I'll be getting my haircut tomorrow. So sick about this nonsense. I've got it long enough. So I'm waiting to see if you see any videos tomorrow. I'll be with shorter hair. But yeah, I think, he looks fine, clean shaven, but I don't know, there's sometimes the beard just kind of fits certain actors. I like Kurt Russell in The Thing. I like his beard in that. I think he looks good with that. Harrison Ford's had a beard a few times too. It pretty looks good. But anyway, enough about these handsome men with beards, like myself. Anyway, back to the show. So anyway, he actually sort of starts watching this other girl, but he's trying to convince himself, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fall in love again. Which of course, it's Joe Goldberg. He's going to fall in love again. And this girl was dating that guy who he just found dead in his apartment. So he's trying to avoid the situation. Eventually they hook up and they kind of have sort of a back and forth thing going on. And, he's trying to figure out who the fuck killed this guy. Because I'm like, I don't think I fucking killed him. I didn't have reason to. He's annoying, but I didn't have a set reason. And he also befriends this British guy who's trying to run for mayor and has been an author and all that. And he's kind of around the same crowd. And so you're figuring this whole kind of thing out. He ends up going to this mansion, and then one of the other rich people there dies too. And this other guy shoves him out the window, and there's just a whole thing there. It's almost it's interesting because the first half is kind of painting him almost like you're supposed to sympathize with him, and that he's almost heroically trying to expose this person that is, trying to blackmail him essentially. I know who you are, because he keeps seeing all these notes that, hey, Joe, they know you're really Joe. You're not this Jonathan guy. Meanwhile, his student, too, she's a big fan of murder mystery. I'm doing my fan thing, baby. Anyway, is basically like a murder mystery fan, like Agatha Christie and all that. So she's, meanwhile, suspicious and trying to figure out who this kill the rich killer is. And so anyway, like I said, he gets engrossed in this kind of rich, pretentious world, all these rich people. And so they all try to figure out, oh, he's a killer, we gotta round him up. And then the other guy's like, I'm gonna get him. And then the British guy ends up being there. And so it's like, oh, by the end of the first half, it's like, oh, the British guy's the one that set him up. You know, this guy who's running for mayor is setting him up for all this stuff and knows about what he did back in America. And this is a whole big thing. Like, okay, this is how things are going to go. You know, he's going to try to expose this British guy so he can take him down and, you know, hide his own misdeeds. Meanwhile, we get to part 2. I think I mentioned Marianne. He let her go. Or did he? Because by the end of, I think it was the end of first part, or it might have been the end of the first episode of the second part. I'm trying to remember. It's, like I said, I watched the other part first in February. So anyway, we get to, you know, Marianne's in the cage, and the student actually finds her. I think it was the second part now that I think about it. And so I was like, okay, so Marianne didn't get away. She didn't actually get away. Whoops. So you're thinking, okay, well, this is weird. Meanwhile, he meets Greg Kinnear, who's playing the father of this girl that he's been kind of hooking up with. And he's a big rich guy, very much like Logan Roy in Succession. Just pretentious. Rich guy, owns a lot of shit, has a lot of power, you know, the usual. But also has a very estranged relationship with his daughter, so there's a whole thing there. But he immediately calls him Joe, like he knows who he is already, too. So I was like, oh man, everybody just knows who I am. But he says, I know where this British guy is and you can take him out. And you know what? He says, my connections, they'll never know you did it, you know. So he's getting this kind of connection with Greg Kinnear. So I'm like, okay, I'll take this motherfucker out, you know. So he goes and finds the British guy, and he answers the door, and the British guy's like, who the hell are you, type of thing. And then he knocks him out, ties him up. Starts asking him where Marianne is, because he's thinking this guy, because last time he saw this guy in his apartment, he said, yeah, we captured Marianne. We let her go, you know, she's not died. She ain't dead yet, but, you know, keep pushing my buttons and she will be, you know. So he's very angry. He's, you know, how in love with Marianne he is. And so he ends up like going too far and choking the guy out, and he kills him. And you're like, oh wow, that was interesting. Then the guy walks up again behind him and starts talking to him, and you're like, wait a minute. Turns out we have our dark passenger. So basically we start to flash back. So we're getting a little Dexter here. Evil Dexter, I'd say, more so than regular Dexter. Although, you know, a certain point. But so we get to flashback, and it turns out he was kind of becoming obsessed with this British guy. Not so much in a romantic way, but just in terms of like, oh, he's just so captivating and all that stuff. So this captivating guy that he had just killed basically is kind of his darker half, so to speak. The one that kills the people and does his anger and all that stuff is, you know, kind of his dark passenger. So we see that he actually drugged the coffee, and he captured Marianne, his dark, and then, you know, meanwhile, you see him watching all these videos with this guy and reading this book and all this other stuff. So that's kind of how he, you know, got to London and all that stuff. So meanwhile, he's got her in the cage. The student has found her. And meanwhile, they try to fake it that you find out later that she fakes this, but he finds the text message, and the person babysitting her kid's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're a drug addict again. And, you know, we're taking the kid. Turns out later on, you find out that her and the student plotted that there to make it seem so that she could fake her death. And die in his arms and all that stuff by taking drugs. Because she was a former addict, if you remember from season 3. And so that ends up being, he ends up leaving her on a park bench so that her daughter can, you know, say goodbye and all that stuff. But of course, the other girl, the student actually comes by with the EpiPen type thing and wakes her up, and she gets to, you know, so she gets away, Marianne gets away, she's off with her family, all good. So at this point, Joe's like, okay, I need to kill this rich guy. You know, it's the best thing because he's just being awful to his daughter, and he's just an awful human being. So he captures the rich guy, and he's got him tied up. And then his bodyguard guy tries to come in. He tries to warn the guy. The guy gets his throat slit. And then he ends up, eventually, after got a lot of monologuing and all that stuff, he ends up putting a bag over Greg Kinnear's head. Did I mention Greg Kinnear's playing him? Yeah, playing a sleazy role. He's played that before. So, and so he chokes him out with a bag over his head and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, that was vicious. Different way to die. Then he says, well, I can just pin this on this Bruno guy, who was the name of the guy who was bodyguard. He went crazy and wanted the money and all that stuff. So easy peasy. So then he decides that he's going to like the good part of Joe decides, no, I'm gonna jump in this freaking ocean or river or wherever it is. I'm trying to think of whatever was the ocean. I think it was just a river, because it's in London. But drink a little bit here, talking a lot. Got that allergy throat going on, where it's just like allergies, seasonal allergies, itchy. So anyway, he decides he's gonna jump, into this river and just like end it all. It's like, I've done what I can do. Marianne is free. I I feel bad that she died and all that, and so he's gonna die. So of course, as he's done now, there's like, man, you never notice whenever someone does this, they immediately regret it. So it ends up he's not dead, and the girl comes to his bed and all that stuff, and it's almost sort of like he's a rebirth for Joe. He's like, I feel like a new person now after this. I've gone to the water and I've come back. A new person. I can let all that go. But meanwhile, of course, the student is still investigating, saying, I know what this guy's done, and she's seen him with Marianne in the cage and all that, so she wants to expose him. So she's got this boyfriend, but she comes out of his apartment with this thing, and then suddenly drops her phone when he's standing there, and he deletes all her photos that she had just taken, and then she turns around and sees that her boyfriend's dead. And then he hands her the knife and says, well, now this is, hey, you can go on and live your life. No big deal. They'll know that you killed him and he had done this murder. And basically just plots it all on her. And, he's got this now corporate backing. He's with this other girl. And so he gets to just kind of live in. And now he's kind of a whole self again. So his dark half is with him. So he's one complete psychopath. But, man, he loves him. So he's all clean shaven by the end too, just to really go with his new persona, essentially. So yeah, so just for any of you who are thinking that Joe is going to turn out to be a good hero and person, no, he's still awful. He's still very, very awful, which is fine. That's just kind of how his character is, guys. That's what's fun about the show. Should you ever idolize this person? Absolutely not. Not the way to do love. Not murdering people and stalking them and being creepy. Not the way to do things. But it's a fun show. It's well acted. It's a fun show. I really enjoyed it. I was kind of unsure of the first half too. I was like, I wonder where this is going. But I'm like, what? I should trust my instincts. So as soon as I saw that second half was on, I was like, okay, yeah, that's the Joe Goldberg we know and love. And plus, like I said, I love those monologues too. It's like you. I saw one where he was doing one for a TikTok. That was pretty funny. So yeah, guys, check it out on Netflix. It's on the Netflix. Both parts of the season are on there now. So I guess we'll be getting a 5th season at some point. And maybe Joe Goldberg will get his someday, by God. But cool. Awesome show, guys. Really enjoyed it. Very entertaining. And hope you'll check it out too. And I'll be back soon here with another pitch for Friday the 13th. Well, I know on the little thing it said final movie. That was a final movie for that particular thing. Doesn't mean I'm done with the pitches. So I still got a few more to go for Friday the 13th, and then I got to figure out what to do after that. All right, guys, cool. Have a good day, and like and subscribe. We appreciate all those new subscribers and all those views on the last Friday the 13th video. Let's get some views on this one, too. Who knows? The algorithm, right? All right, guys, have a great day.